And I believe we are ready to go. Nick, carry us out.
All right, thanks, guys. Well, it's quite appropriate that our last match of the afternoon will pit one countryman against the other. There's no doubt we'll have an American as the world champion, but who will walk away with that prestigious title? Now, just a reminder, our World Championship closing ceremony will begin directly following this match. But without further ado, I think we're ready for a match of the century. Ladies and gentlemen, from the United States of America, Simon Narode! Boy, the crowd's going crazy. And his challenger, also from the United States of America, Jason Klaczynski! Oh, emotion is running high. It's now up to you, trainers. You may begin.
And we are off. Both players shake hands. They have their starting Pokemon. And we can begin the ultimate test. The challenged versus the challenger.
Yeah. Now, Jason Klaczynski is actually a player who we featured before. And we do know his deck. We do know that he is playing the Darkrai deck with no real special Pokemon involved.
Nothing, not even Absol. So it's extremely interesting. Obviously, it's been able to carry him all the way through. He's running for maximum consistency. Simon, on the other hand, has some interesting cards. The biggest one being the Lugia EX that he has inside of his Plasma deck. He likes to use it to take extra prize cards. He's got the double colorless energy to power that. Aside from that, everything looks like a pretty standard Plasma list. Some should be a lot what we've seen from this matchup, and that is an extremely close one that depends highly on who can get set up first.
Yeah, now Simon Narode is playing the Plasma deck, the ever so popular Plasma deck that just happens to be everywhere. And he is playing the Lugia EX version, which means that he does play a single double colorless energy in his list, and he does play that Absol, which happens to give a lot of other decks fits.
Now, one factor I do see in Jason's list that we were not able to see in the game that we did cast for him is the Enhanced Hammer. He runs 2 Enhanced Hammer to discard special energy cards. Unfortunately for Simon, his entire deck's energy is special energy. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out, because it definitely does hurt to lose your energy to a single trainer card.
Yeah, now I took the time to actually speak to both players and ask them, you know, how they felt about their matchup against the opponent. So both players agreed that the matchup is very close. Simon said that he feels like he might have the edge if the game goes long and he can apply his strategy the way he wants to. And Jason said that he absolutely gets the edge if he can start recurring these enhanced hammers with something like a Sableye Junk Hunt attack over and over.
And we have seen Sableye so many times in these stream matches. It is just such an incredibly strong card. We saw it win the juniors almost single-handedly due to its extreme utilization. You can get so many things with it. Jason leading with it here, I'm sure he is happy to see.
Yeah, now he's also leading with a Mr. Mime on the bench. The Mr. Mime is going to stop the Kyurem from being able to deal double the damage with Frostbeard, essentially, and it will not let the Frostbeard deal the damage to the bench Pokemon.
Mr. Mime is such an interesting card. You never attack with it. All it does is retreat. He only has 70 HP. But sometimes all you need is just one really good ability to be useful. Mr. Mime, he creates a wall that just blocks all damage to any bench Pokemon. Extremely useful, especially against a deck with the Kyurem that has Frostbeard.
Now, I do see a Darkness Energy in Jason's hand, which means he will be able to Junk Hunt this turn, and I am so positive he's going to actually do that. Now, what targets he's actually going to choose, that's a story for another day. I do want to see him have an Enhanced Hammer pretty soon here, because that's what his entire strategy relies upon. Right.
If he hit Enhanced Hammer on this first turn, he would have a huge advantage, because he could continually pull that back over and over again with Sableye. Unfortunately, he missed it, but looks like his opponent isn't in the best spot. He has 2 Plasma Energy entered. He didn't start with the Thundurus EX, accelerating energy or anything like that. Right now, the unfavorable Deoxys EX is active. He's an excellent support Pokemon, not so great in the open spot. So we're going to see how he gets around this.
Now, the Junk Hunt did fetch an Ultra Ball and I believe a Hypnotoxic Laser. So that does say quite a few things. When you play 4 Hypnotoxic Lasers, they're pretty good. You had a 5th, it ends up being that much better.
All right, and we've seen many times Hypnotoxic Laser gets knockouts all on its own, even on EX Pokemon. It is an incredible trainer card, and as we can see, the Verbank City Gym is in play. Take a look real quick at Verbank City Gym, because it is going to be locked there for the rest of the game.
Now, another thing that I do want to mention is that I also spoke to very, very many high-level players, and they all agreed, every single one of them agreed, that Jason has the advantage in this matchup.
I agree, too.
Yeah, he really does. Even though it is close, and both of these players have stated that it's close, they still all agree that once the Enhanced Hammers start coming down, once, say, something like the Dark Claw starts coming down, and you start seeing Darkrai deal enough damage to really put a lot of pressure on this Plasma deck, it's going to be a tough road ahead for Simon.
Right, and it's more than just the base matchup of why I think Jason might have an advantage. There's little things like the Mr. Mime. Right now, Keldeo just used its Frost Spear to knock out the active Sableye, dealing 20 extra damage to the active with Deoxys, then the 30 between turns from Poison. But he does not get to deal that extra 30 damage to the bench simply because Mr. Mime exists.
Yeah, that would have been an extra 60 damage by now.
Right, it's just little techs like that that allow you to, absorb some damage and really get your way to the end of the game. Especially when you've got things like bench damage dealing 30 to a Darkrai EX on the bench. That sets you up for a Blizzard Bird and KO later. So sometimes just being able to block a little bit of damage can go a long way. Yeah,
now Jason's turn consisted of a Random Receiver, which is an item card that lets you flip the top card of your deck until you see a supporter card and then put it in your hand. I believe it found an N, so that's why we saw the shuffling happen, and I believe he's getting ready to play the N as well.
So he plays Ultra Ball, discards one of his Darkrai. Looking through, I don't know if at this point he searched his deck and knows that there's another Darkrai, but at this point I'm sure he feels fairly comfortable. He wants to play that Sableye War, find those Enhanced Hammers. Yeah, Thundurus is in play, but doesn't have any energy. Anything you can do really to stunt your opponent from getting that Blizzard Burn off.
Yeah, now the Sableye does play a very major role in this matchup. I would say even almost as large a role as the Darkrai itself, which happens to be your win condition. So I absolutely like seeing these Sableyes come down, and I just hope that he doesn't lose them too fast.
Right, and I've seen several Darkrai lists. Many players, in order to make space for new things, in particular Absol, cut down to maybe 2 Sableye. Jason says no to that. Sableye is pretty much his favorite card in the format right now. He runs 3, and he uses them just about every game multiple times.
For a good reason. Junk Hunt is just by far, in my opinion, the best attack in the game, and Jason obviously agrees. So.
Right. All other decks envy Junk Hunt. You just have to have a dark-focused deck in order to really utilize it.
Exactly.
So here we see that first Enhanced Hammer. That is a crucial card for Jason, not only for stunning his opponent, but because he can continually recurse it with his Sableye and Junk Hunt.
That's the ideal card here for Jason. It really is. The Enhanced Hammer starts getting the Junk Hunt lock, so to speak, into effect. And as long as the Sableyes do not go down too fast, he'll be able to really take this strategy to an entirely different level. And he's going to slow this game down to a snail's pace. Right,
and if we could look at Darkrai EX really quickly, you can see he has the ability Dark Cloak, which allows any Pokemon with a Darkness energy attached to them to retreat for free. That's great for Keldeo EX, which can switch in with his ability Rush In, retreat for free, and Sableye is completely ready. So a lot of cards with great synergy. Being able to switch a lot is very helpful, especially when all you want to do is promote little Sableye and start Junk Hunting as often as possible.
Yeah, man, that Sableye is really going to be doing a lot of damage, so to speak, even though it really won't be dealing any actual damage.
That's the weirdest thing. He is a 70 HP basic with a 0 damage attack, but he does more damage than many EX Pokemon, believe it or not.
Yeah, that little guy. So Skyla is coming down from Simon, and he searches his deck, then finally finds an Ultra Ball. That Ultra Ball will likely net him, I want to say, a Kyurem here, but it's possible that he could fetch pretty much any other Pokemon. Now, see how the Enhanced Hammer really doesn't do anything for Simon? He's dying to really get it out of his hand as soon as possible.
Right. Jason does not run any special energy. That being said, Simon only runs the single copy of the Enhanced Hammer, sort of as a small tech, likely some kind of counter for other Plasma decks. Really, just discarding 1 energy means a lot, and nothing tells you that more than Simon running a single copy. So, seeing that, you know how strong Jason's is when he can run it all the time.
Yeah, now Simon did find a Keldeo EX with his with his Ultra Ball, which tells me that he does have a Float Stone. There it is. So the Russian will allow him to retreat for free. And, well, he'll be able to rush in and then retreat for free, and the Kyurem will no longer be sleep and poisoned.
So we've seen Keldeo use his ability on both sides. Let's take a real quick look at Keldeo. His ability Rush In, it's very simple. It allows you to switch Keldeo from the bench into the active spot. Seems very simple, but in a game where special conditions can only be on the active spot, it really is helpful to just switch in, remove those special conditions, and move again, either through Darkrai's Dark Cloak or Float Stone.
Yeah, now even though the Enhanced Hammerlock is really strong, the counter to it is Thundurus EX. With Ride and Knuckle, he'll be able to attach 2 energies a turn, so to speak, and be able to really outrace this Enhanced Hammer.
Right. The one thing he did not find, though, was a Hypnotoxic Laser. I'm sure he would have loved to knock out this Sableye right away instead of just dealing 50 to it. Now, in any other situation, you'd think, oh, well, that Sableye only has 20 HP left. You can knock it out with a Frost Spear later. He can't do that. Mr. Mime's on the bench. So having to knock out Sableye in 2 attacks definitely does hinder your strategy.
Yeah, now Jason energy searched and missed. I'm not sure if he didn't have any energies left in his deck or if he just decided not to find one, but that is interesting.
Yeah, it's very likely he's burning cards. I see a bicycle in his hand, which, as we all know, is the item card that allows you to draw until you have 4 cards in your hand. It's not a supporter, so you can play it as often as you like. I think he's just trying to burn down as much as he can so he can maximize on that draw.
Exactly. So that does explain why he didn't find the energy. So the bicycle now, a second bicycle does draw him 2 cards now, so it's starting to get a little bit
they
more
look
useful.
like 2 pretty strong cards. I see Pokemon Catcher and Professor Juniper. So that was
I don't know. Juniper doesn't seem very good. I mean, it only draws you 7 cards.
For a second there, I was like, where are you going with this? You're misleading the whole audience.
Oh, man.
No, Professor Juniper is incredible. Not only for any deck, discarding your hand and drawing 7 cards helps everyone, but in Darkrai, especially because you get Darks into the discard pile for Dark Patch.
Yeah, now, it was actually Jason that found the Hypnotoxic Laser here, and he's going to be able to deal 30 damage between turns to Thundurus EX, but then that's going to be the end of that because Keldeo will rush in during Simon's next turn.
Right, but just doing the math, that 30 can go a long way. Let's say Thundurus has to remain active. He won't, actually, because Keldeo can switch in at any point. But even 30 damage can do a lot. Let's look at Darkrai. His Night Spear's doing 90. 20 more because he has Dark Claw. That's 110. 110 plus the 30 is 140. If he plays another Hypnotoxic Laser, that's the perfect 30 damage for a 2-prize knockout.
It's a lot of damage.
No, I know, you have to do a lot of thinking in advance to get these things going, but just little things. It makes you think, well, I mean, Jason not only has a luxury of being able to just recurse these Hypnotoxic Lasers, but he knows what he's doing with them.
So there are multiple avenues to get rid of this Junk Hunt lock that we've been speaking of. And the first one was Thundurus EX, like we saw last turn. The second one is actually N, which we saw this turn. So now, after the Junk Hunt happens and the Enhanced Hammer goes into Jason's hand, Simon decides to actually shuffle Jason's hand into his deck and give him a brand new hand of 6.
Right. If we could look at N real quick, it isn't the perfect scenario early in. You play N, both players shuffle, and they draw by how many prize cards they've taken. When Jason has not taken a prize yet, he still gets to draw 6, so it's not out of the question that he sees that Enhanced Hammer again. That being said, anything you can do in the early turns to remove that from his hand is probably a good move. You need an energy attachment as often as possible early game.
Yeah, now the Enhanced Hammer actually happened to come back into Jason's hand, so he'll be able to Enhance Hammer again next turn. But with Thundurus being able to start ride and knuckling every turn, and Jason running out of these Sableyes, it's looking like the strategy was completely nullified, and we'll have a very long, drawn-out game without the Enhanced Hammer really truly playing a pivotal role.
Right, and I know at this point, I mean, an Enhanced Hammer on that benched Kyurem definitely will shut him off from attacking the next turn, but Jason doesn't really have too much ammunition behind him either, so it's going to be interesting. He definitely wants to do maximum utilization of these Night Spears, getting prizes where he can, discarding his opponent's energies with any tools he have, because it could be interesting. He's used 2 of his Sableye.
Now there is a Pokemon Catcher onto the Kyurem, which means that the Kyurem will be knocked out before it gets to attack and Blizzard Burn. So I'd like to see an Enhanced Hammer actually on the Deoxys EX. Potentially the Thundurus, but I believe that the Deoxys EX is a little bit more dangerous right now. I would like to actually see the Deoxys EX on the screen.
Right. And it's really interesting. We've talked about Deoxys EX. He's so useful because of his ability, which adds 10 damage per Deoxys EX in play to your other Plasma Pokemon. It's really what is the foundation of the entire Plasma deck. That said, if you look at Deoxys, he is ready for Helix Force, which At face value isn't always that good. When you have a Plasma Energy attached, however, it does 30 plus 30 for each energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon.
Exactly. So Deoxys EX normally deals 120 damage in this situation to a Pokemon with 3 energies on it, but Darkrai EX is actually does resist it, so it would only deal 100. Only
right.
100.
Right. Only 100 damage. Even then, that's still what I call halfway there. If you can get halfway there, that's a 2-hit knockout. And Deoxys normally isn't like your go-to strong attacker, but even Plasmats, even their support Pokemon can still pack a punch.
Now, since he actually removed the energy from the Thundurus, I'd like to see the 30 damage go onto the Deoxys, which did happen, which means that if Deoxys does attack for 100 damage, Jason will be able to knock it out.
Right, it's the perfect amount of damage, 110 plus 60, and that's another 2 prizes for Jason. We see a Hypnotoxic Laser here. He misses the Sleep Flip. However, that does bring in some interesting math. We're doing 100 damage to the active. If he does decide to attack here with Helix Force, 30 more between turns. An additional 30. Oh, actually, he's got the Keldeo. So the damage will stop there. But 130 damage on a Darkrai does leave you with some easy options for knockouts, including Thundurus.
Yeah, now you see how the Enhanced Hammerlock did not take Simon out of the game, but once he started attacking with these Darkrai's, these Enhanced Hammers actually ended up doing quite a bit of damage, and they slowed Simon down considerably. So once this Deoxys does go down, he's going to be down to a field with no energy, or potentially just 1 or 2.
Right. So here, just playing the Hypnotoxic Laser and maybe giving him a chance to take a knockout on the next turn with Thundurus is probably the best situation for him, because he kind of has to attack with Thundurus to get back into this game. And it's interesting, those hammers really did hurt him. Now, he wants to attack with Kyurem whenever possible. It only gives up 1 prize. It gives him pretty much his easiest out to a 1-hit knockout on a Darkrai EX. So without that fueling him, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes down.
Yeah, Simon also plays an Absol, but the Absol really doesn't deal all that much damage considering Jason doesn't fill his bench very often. And Jason is very aware of the Absol, so I don't expect for Absol to really play a major role in this game. But I do expect for Lugia EX to potentially make a showing if the game goes that long.
Right, that will definitely be interesting. And we can even look at Absol really quickly, because Jason made the conscious decision not to add it into his deck. He runs a deck that is fueled entirely by cards that aid Dark Pokemon, and he doesn't play an Absol. Simon, on the other hand, still runs it as a tech, so it's very interesting. I know Jason, I've talked with him several times on this tech. He is extremely set in his ways. He believes that the Absol provides no real extra advantage. Plenty of players will disagree with that. Then again, it's hard to disagree once you're here at the top 2.
Yeah, and Jason is renowned as the best player of all time, believe it or not. And I actually asked a lot of players, what does Jason have to do to really secure his spot as the best player of all time? And this is before the tournament even began. This is before the LCQ even began. So then, all of a sudden, everybody just tells me, no, actually, I'm pretty sure he's already considered the best player. And then I said, well, hypothetically, would he have to have some sort of an incredible run? And they're like, well, let's say this. If he becomes a 3-time world champion, you'll have to wash your mouth out with soap if you decide to call Jason not the best player of all time.
And that's sort of the thing I've talked with Jason about before. I mean, he has an incredible resume that no other Pokemon trading card game player has. That said, his last great accomplishment came in 2008. So that's been quite a few years, since he's been here at the throne. To be here at the top 2 several years later, though, I'm sure that's going to erase the doubt in a lot of critics' minds.
Absolutely. So Acolrus does draw Simon 7 cards. 7 cards is quite a bit. That's basically a Juniper, a pseudo-Juniper here. And it's going to potentially let him bounce back from this 0 energy in play situation that he's found himself in.
Right, and we do look at the damage, and it is in his favor as long as he can just get an energy attached to Thundurus. He can take the 2 prizes on Ride Knuckle here. That said,
his deck is low on energies now.
He also has to be careful not to throw the cards he draws off the table.
Yeah, that would definitely be appreciated.
I can only imagine the nerves going through his mind right now.
7 cards. Did he find an energy? An energy would be important. He did
well, there's
find
the
an
Prism.
Energy. That's 50 damage that's going to be able to attack the Darkrai and knock it out. This is so important. I can't.
And on top of that, he also has the Team Plasma Ball, so you can get a Pokemon to the bench and sort of utilize that Ride to Knuckle to its maximum potential. He wants to attach that energy to something hungry for it.
I was going to suggest a Kyurem, but actually I changed my mind. And Lugia is the perfect card here. Lugia can definitely come down. Do we have a Lugia that we can actually show?
Unfortunately, we do not. But one of the greatest things about Lugia EX is its ability to take an extra prize card with his attack. So, if there is some situation where he can knock out just a basic Pokemon, such as Sableye or Mr. Mime, you could take 2 prize cards as if it was an EX.
Yeah, it makes Sableye actually be worth what it's supposed to be worth, essentially. But yeah, one thing to notice, though, is that he cannot knock out the Pokemon with the Hypnotoxic Laser poison damage. So the Pokemon does need to have the exact amount of HP or less in order to be knocked out, and no Hypnotoxic Laser shenanigans will be able to activate this ability.
Right. Well, looking at the way the math is going now, he has 2 prizes left, so that likely won't play into effect. He wants to get a Lugia knockout on this Mr. Mime, or just a straight knockout on this Darkrai benched.
This is a really back-and-forth game. You see both players employ both of their strategies almost perfectly. Jason tried to go with the lock. Simon tried to counter it as much as possible. Then they started exchanging prizes, and now look at them.
And you know, it's really interesting. I'm not sure, based on Simon's hand, if this was a conscious decision or not, but do you know if he has the other Kyurem within his deck? Because I think ideally you want to get Kyurem down and attach an energy to it. He takes only 3 energy to do his attack. They both deal 120. Now, if Lugia somehow you can rack up all those 4 energy and knock out Mr. Mime, that is perfect. That wins you the game. But it's still a few turns out unless he has Colress Machine and double colorless energy in hand.
Yeah, it was probably more of a conscious decision of like maybe the HP factor. He doesn't want the Kyurem to be threatened by a knockout with something like a Hypnotoxic Laser. Man, that is hard.
This is correct. No, I know it's quite the mouthful. But just looking at what Simon has, it looks like he's trying to go through what a lot of players note as a 7-prize trade. Jason Klaczynski has 3 prizes left. EX Pokemon give up 2 each. So if you force him to go through 2 different EX Pokemon, that's 7 prizes instead of the 6 you normally would to win the game.
I learn something new every day, apparently, because I didn't know about a 7-prize trade before. But
it's crucial.
But you are right about your assessment here, and he would force Jason to take 4 prizes instead of 3 if he doesn't fill his bench up with a non-EX.
And he is in an interesting spot. I'm not sure if he's attached yet during this turn. He does have the Mr. Mime active. I know he wants it out of play. He can always rush in with the Keldeo and move. But we do see the Enhanced Hammer.
The Enhanced Hammer is going to take the energy off of the Lugia, and it's going to allow him to attack the benched Thundurus, which is going to knock it out with, well, he actually still needs a Dark Claw to knock it out.
That's correct. He has played the 1 Dark Claw so far on his bench Darkrai. He doesn't have it. Now, it's funny. He draws so many cards in his deck, it feels like he has Dark Claw whenever he needs it. This is one of those interesting times where he doesn't, and he really wishes he did.
Yeah, now, it is important to note, though, that even if he doesn't find the Dark Claw, he's going to deal 90 damage, which puts the Thundurus at 158 damage taken.
Correct.
And that means that even if the Thundurus does get retreated, a Night Spirit knockout will eventually happen.
Right, yeah, that second Night Spear will still knock him out of the bench. Simon does not have the luxury of Mr. Mime protecting all of his fellow benched Pokemon, and so that could be how things swing out. Jason plays an N, and both players have taken quite a few prize cards, so this could be do or die. You're drawing 3 cards, 2 cards. That's normally not a lot to work with.
That laser is ideal. That laser, I believe he drew a laser.
He did, and yeah, that definitely is. That gives him a knockout right here in the active spot. He definitely wanted to see that.
That is very crucial. That's going to ensure 1 knockout currently, and it's going to deal 30 damage to any benched Pokemon.
Now, were you able to see what Simon had? I was not.
No, I was paying attention to Jason's hand. Jason's hand was the important one.
The player in the commanding position, he takes it. He's down to 1 prize. Simon needs 2, and he draws, let's see, what 3 cards he has. I believe I see a Pokemon catcher.
Now, no matter what, Simon's going to need to use Thundurus' Ride and Knuckle this turn. There's no other attack that I feel like he can make.
The only other thing I can think of is if he somehow has 2 Colress Machine and double colorless energy to power up Lugia in 1 turn. I do not believe that is going to be what's going to happen.
that would require not only the Colress Machines but the Plasma Energies to be inside of his own deck. Which
has he played them all? I'm not 100. Yeah, he attached like 2 Plasma Energy his very first turn of the game. So
yeah, you are right. Early on in this game, something like 20 minutes ago, it seems, he did indeed attach a couple of Plasma Energies.
So interestingly enough, he decides to attach to the Deoxys on the bench. I guess he's decided you need a lot of energy to get that Lugia to actually happen. Probably not going to here. However, if you look at the math, Darkrai has 50 on him. Deoxys can hit for 100. All he needs is a single Hypnotoxic Laser to deal that final 30 and take 2 prizes.
Exactly. That's exactly what Simon's going to be looking at. Now, if I'm Jason, I'm probably hoping for a N, but he's not.
Well, if Jason hits Hypnotoxic Laser and Dark Claw, I believe he can take it right here.
Yeah.
And let's see, what did he get? I see Dark
Claw.
Claw. There's
and the laser. There it
laser.
is. The handshake is done. That is game 1. Jason Klaczynski.
Wow, we are boiling right down to the line straight from game 1. That felt like a finals match right there.
It truly, well, it definitely was. And Jason Klaczynski is 1 game away from becoming a 3-time world champion.
Like I said, it always feels like he has that Dark Claw because he runs so many cards in his deck to draw it. There,
My
he had
goodness.
it right when he needed it. Hypnotoxic laser. And you notice early in the game, he was bringing back those lasers over and over again with Sableye. It's like you said, being able to have 5, 6 lasers a game gives you a huge advantage.
Yeah, what an exciting finish. All these early game plays, like the enhanced hammers, the hypnotoxic lasers.
Still a mouthful.
Yeah, exactly. All of these early game plays, they really ended up paying dividends towards the end of the game. And I'm just so happy to see how these strategies that seemingly fail and they're so complicated just pay off towards the end. And that's what makes Jason one of the best players of all time.
Right, and it's got to be heartbreaking for Simon. You have to wonder, would he have hit a Hypnotoxic laser on his next turn? Maybe a catcher if Jason decided he needed to ultimately retreat his Darkrai, because he really was just 1 attack away from taking that game himself.
Exactly. That's what's so awesome about this game and about this matchup. Both of these decks are so evenly matched. They're so close to each other that even though Jason does have the edge with this strategy, Simon can just keep up with him toe-to-toe the entire match, and it can come down to the wire.
Right, and here's a little moment of perspective for you guys. Jason Klaczynski is our 2-time world champion. Simon has been playing for 2 years. So it just goes to show you can very quickly ramp up in skill in this game and be competing at the top level. And so Simon is definitely playing for his life. I'm sure he'll choose to go first in this next game, and we are underway.
Yeah, now they are also from different sides of the country. Simon's from the Northwest area, a couple hours away from here, actually. And Jason Klaczynski happens to be from Chicago, Illinois, and South Florida. So, honestly, pretty much the opposite ends of the country.
Right. As a Chicago player myself, I know plenty about Jason. Simon is a lot of question marks for me. I know he's been paving a great way for himself for such an early player, but he's stepping it up here in the finals, really the penultimate finals against the one person you really want to beat.
That is exactly right. And even though Simon has only been playing for 2 years, he's no stranger to playing Pokemon for gold, basically, so to speak. And he has done extremely well. He actually qualified for the World Championships well before the National Championships even happened. And to give you a perspective, Jason actually didn't qualify for the World Championships until a couple days ago.
Right. Jason had to go through the last chance qualifier. Now, Jason did have a solid season. He was close, but he couldn't win enough tournaments to get those complete championship points all the way through. That said, you can't really knock how Jason got here. And the last chance qualifier is a terrifying tournament right before Worlds where you lose once, you're out. They play until there's just 8 players left to get that nice extra spot into the World Championships. So
exactly.
To go from grinder all the way to the top 2 tables, that's quite a journey.
And actually, I believe that this is Jason's 2nd time grinding in, so the guy is no stranger to winning every type of tournament, including the grinders.
Right, and I believe it was last year, he was just 1 game off, or 2 years ago, so he's been very close in the grinder before. He is no stranger to entering Worlds, both conventional and unconventional ways.
You know what else is no stranger? That's Sableye's Junk Hunt. Sableye is the active Pokemon for this game as well, and there is an enhanced hammer on the very first turn of the game. I cannot stress how important that is if he can Junk Hunt this turn.
Right, you saw how effective it was last game, and he didn't get it turn 1. Now he has it turn 1. This could be a real whooping if he continues to recycle those.
Yeah, now pay attention to the fact that Kyurem has 2 energies on it already. That was Simon's ideal turn. It really was. He had 3 energy at the end of his own turn. That means that even though the enhanced hammer is as strong as ever, it could be nullified by the fact that Simon had so many energy in play.
Right, he did start that ideal Thundurus start, Ride Knuckle, getting you extra energies in play. But that said, it's really going to come down to whether or not he can maintain it without Jason hitting more hammers.
Exactly. So we do see an energy on the Sableye, which means that we are absolutely expecting a Junk Hunt for likely that laser and that enhanced hammer. Now, you notice how I'm saying laser and no longer saying hypnotoxic? Now I can pronounce it.
Saves you several syllables.
So I fully expect to see Jason just Junk Hunt pretty soon here.
Right, I'm looking at cards in his hand. He does have that Tool Scrapper, which he has not used yet, but it allows you to discard 2 Pokemon tools in play. Definitely great for chucking float stones if Simon ever needs to use them.
That Thundurus stayed asleep, which means that the Keldeo will have to come into play if he wants to wake oh, there it is. There's that Keldeo.
Well,
that's exactly what he needs. And he Colress's for 6 cards.
All right, we can look at Colress real quick. It allows you to shuffle your hand in your deck, draw cards equal to the amount of Pokemon on both players' bench. So normally he might want to draw a few more, but shuffle draw 6 is strong. There was an old card in previous format called Professor Oak's New Theory that did just that every time, and it was an extremely strong supporter card.
Absolutely. So now that the Thundurus is asleep, he's going to want to find a Floatstone to be able to attach to the Keldeo so he can rush in and retreat for free. And potentially even definitely knock out the Sableye. But that's the Floatstone. He does find it. That was very important, very crucial. He's going to rush in this turn.
He needs to get that Thundurus out of the spot. And here's an interesting scenario. He can rush in and bring Thundurus in once more, get another energy into play, if there is one in his discard pile. I believe there is. There's no other reason he wouldn't want a Frost Spear here. And there we see it. A knockout on Sableye, another energy, so that Kyurem is ready.
That is a 3rd energy on the Kyurem, and his prize card happened to be Computer Search. Pretty much any card in his deck.
Right. Computer Search, as we can display here, is an extremely strong A-Spec card. It allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand, search for really anything. It's the perfect, completely versatile card.
Yeah, exactly. And Jason was debating between activating Darkrai or Keldeo, but in reality it doesn't truly matter that much. And he activates the Darkrai instead. So a Pokemon catcher onto there it is, onto the Keldeo, which is the correct target here.
And as we've noted, he did play that Tool Scrapper card to get rid of the Floatstone. So now Simon needs to find an additional Floatstone if he wants to get out of the scenario.
That was a big flip right there. Ooh. That means that the Keldeo is asleep and he's going to need to wake up in order to get out of that active position.
And that being said, it is sort of this weird spot. Like, even if Keldeo does wake up, he needs 2 energy to retreat. The only thing I can think of in Simon's bag of tricks, if he did wake up, is maybe, a double colorless energy. Otherwise, he just really needs to find another Floatstone or, another Keldeo. I'm not really sure. He does not run the normal type of switch in his list.
Exactly.
Which is your way to get out of this sleep situation. Mm-hmm. He needs to find one of his 3 Floatstone once again and wake up.
Yeah, now I do see a Sableye, which excites me because it means that we could see a Junk Hunt lock here with the Keldeo active.
Oh, that could get really ugly. Jason has played both of his enhanced hammers, and so they're just sitting there ready to be recycled.
That is a Darkness Energy going to be attached onto the Sableye?
No, this is an interesting spot. Keldeo
Keldeo's going to be stuck in the active spot.
So we actually might not see a Junk Hunt this turn.
No, we definitely... Well, I don't want to say definitely, but we probably won't.
I'm not sure if he has Energy Switch or not. See Darkrai down. No, a retreat to Darkrai on the bench. So no Junk Hunt. Definitely something Jason would love to have if he could this turn. But instead, he just passes and hopes for the flip. Here it comes. It's heads.
Wakes up. Keldeo is no longer asleep, and he can now potentially get himself out of that active spot if he can find a way to retreat.
Well, and as we've talked about earlier, the Computer Search card allows you to search your deck for anything. If there's a card that Simon would want right now, I'm guessing it would be Floatstone.
Computer Search is actually discarding an Ultra Ball, which is another card that works similarly, but only finds Pokemon, and a Deoxys EX, which he already has 2 of in his bench anyways.
Right, at this point, the math to add the 3rd Deoxys isn't always that useful, but it is useful to note he does only run 3 Deoxys in his deck. Many Plasma players like to play 4, so here, those are all the Deoxys that are going to be in play for the rest of the game.
Now he found the Floatstone, attached it, and chose not to shuffle, which means he is planning on shuffling his deck in later on, which means probably an N.
Well, let's see what he ends up doing. There we see the golden Pokemon catcher pulling up Sableye.
And an N that shuffles Jason's hand in and his own. And if that Sableye can go down, which it can because of the Kyurem, that means that Jason's going to be that much further away from being able to enhance Hammer.
Right, and Simon is playing this matchup extremely cautiously. Now, you might note, well, let's look at the damage. Kyurem, if we could pull it up right now, does 120 damage, plus 20 from the 2 Deoxys. If he has a Hypnotoxic Laser in the stadium, he could knock out a Darkrai. Instead, no, he wants to get rid of Sableye as soon as possible. He knows those enhanced hammers are there to be recycled. He needs to get rid of that menace as soon as possible, and then he's the one with more energy in play and really the commanding lead.
Yeah, now I do expect a Blizzard burn here, and it does indeed happen. Sableye goes down, and Simon takes another prize.
Right, and it does seem like overkill at first. You think, why would you do 140 damage to knock out a 70 HP Pokemon, especially when Blizzard Burn prevents you from attacking your next turn? And the answer is Keldeo, if you switch it in, actually resets the effects. Effects are only present when a Pokemon is in the active position, so if Keldeo switches in, retreats with the Float Stone, and brings Kyurem back in, he can Blizzard Burn multiple turns in a row, making him that much stronger.
Yeah, now Jason found a Dark Patch at the beginning of his turn, and that attaches a second energy from his discard pile onto the Darkrai.
And that is a card he definitely needs to see, because he's down in energy. He really wants to Night Spear this turn. If he doesn't, things could start getting pretty sour for him.
Exactly. Now the Darkrai does have a Dark Claw attached to it, which means that it will deal 110 damage. And he actually plays a Hypnotoxic Laser, putting the Kyurem to sleep, which means that a single Burbank City Gym will be able to knock out this Kyurem.
Right, and that is, of course, assuming that he can get the energy. Oh, well, that being said, he does have Energy Switch, so he's got 120 damage he's doing total. If you include the poison damage right now, that Burbank City Gym is the one card Jason desperately needs if he wants to really turn the tides right now, set Simon back with 0 energy.
Yeah,
If he doesn't, even though that Kyurem has just 10 HP left, it is just as good as a completely healthy one in terms of dealing that massive amount of damage.
Exactly. So Jason's looking for the Burbank.
Here we go.
Simon is looking for
these
Jason
6 cards. Jason points up. He feels he needs some kind of higher power to get him this stadium. Let's see these 6 cards. These are going to be extremely crucial.
I saw a computer search.
He got it.
Oh, there's a Burbank. Burbank City Gym comes down. Kyurem is going to get knocked out, and Simon is going to have 0 energy in play.
Just like the Dark Claw and Hypnotoxic Laser that Jason pulled out on his Juniper at the last game, he desperately needed this one card, was able to hit it. And sometimes just hitting that one card you need is all it takes to become the world champion.
Yeah, it's funny how you'd usually draw your cards very slowly. And the moment he found his card, he's like, I don't care about the rest. Just give them to me as fast as possible.
As soon as he drops that, that really changes the tide in this game. Simon goes from 3 energy to 0, 30 to the benched Thundurus EX. He needs to build all over again, and even though Jason doesn't have this enhanced hammer cycle, he is dealing 110 damage to the active, 30 to the bench, over and over again on a clean Darkrai EX.
Now, I believe he also has a laser in his hand, which is going to let him knock out this Thundurus EX.
Right, that's going to be the perfect amount of math. You'll do 180 damage total if he does the 110 to the active, plus 30 from poison, and the 40 that's already on him. So they're really, even though Jason has only taken 1 prize, that was a very crucial prize overall.
Now, he found I believe, a Plasma Ball for a Lugia. Yep, Plasma Ball for Lugia, and a Colress Machine is probably going to power up this Lugia.
Oh, this could be interesting. If anyone could turn the tide in this game and make things really close, it's Lugia EX. The question is, does Simon have enough to actually pull this thing off? He needs 2 Colress Machine and a double Colorless Energy to set the Lugia off. We see Colress Machine number 1.
Colress Machine number 1 does add the first step, or the first piece of the puzzle to the board, and I want to desperately see another Colress Machine after this Juniper. I believe he's going to play a Juniper. Actually, so he attaches to the Thundurus.
At that point, all right, so Lugia will not be attacking this turn, that's for sure. Instead, he just decides to go do Ride to Knuckle, deal some damage, and attach to the discard.
Yeah, he's hoping for no laser off of Jason, but Jason does have that laser, I believe. Or he at least has the computer search.
Right. Now, Jason's deck has so many options in terms of trainers, so many ways to get them, so many ways to recycle them. They really are what is carrying him throughout these matches.
He plays a random receiver, looking through his deck, trying to see which options he's going to have for the remainder of the game, and he finds an N. So he will be able to shuffle both players' hands in at the end of his turn, even after knocking out this Thundurus.
Right, and one thing I talked about with Dylan when we were doing the juniors match is it's interesting. Sometimes you might not have more prize cards even though you're winning. Right now, I would say Jason is definitely winning this matchup in terms of his board position, the damage he's dealt, the amount of energy he has in play. That being said, if he plays N, he drops his opponent to 4 cards while taking 5 for himself.
Exactly. So we are absolutely going to see a knockout on this Thundurus, and I'd like to see, well, if he already has both Enhanced Hammers in his discard pile, then the only way we're going to start seeing the Lugia start getting slowed down is going to be through Sableye's junk hunts.
Right, and this is interesting. Let's say he does get the double colorless energy, attaches it to Lugia. He can knock out Darkrai for 3 prizes, but he's got to find a way to take that last one.
Yeah, now a computer search comes down from Jason. I'm interested to see what he's going to take. I really don't know what it's going to be.
Right, so we see an Ultra Ball being dumped. Perhaps a Dark Patch. He's looking. Also a Dark Patch. And that could be interesting. Something worth noting is if this active Darkrai does fall.
I believe he just found an Enhanced Hammer. I believe he only had one in his,
he was able to recycle 1 on the first turn in the game. And I believe that was shuffled. So
that was so important. That Enhanced Hammer stops the Lugia from being able to attack unless it finds a Colress machine next turn.
Right, and he has run through several Plasma Energies, so that is going to hurt.
Yeah, that is actually game-breaking almost, and it really takes away a lot of options from Simon.
Right, I'm looking at everything Simon has. The only way he can knock out this Darkrai one way or another on his turn is if he plays a successful Colress machine. There is no other way for him to knock out this active Darkrai. Whether it's Absol, he needs a Colress machine plus a Prism. Deoxys needs a Colress machine plus a Prism. Lugia needs a Colress machine plus a double colorless energy. If he doesn't have a successful Colress machine, he's going to be set back an additional turn without taking a prize outside of the Sableye.
Yeah, it's going to be a big, very, very big, very crucial turn for Simon on his following turn.
Right, and as many players have noted, and we have as well, those Enhanced Hammers really are all the difference. Just discarding 1 energy at any time can be as much as sitting your opponent back an entire turn.
Yep, now Jason's still taking his time even though he does have this knockout because he wants to make sure that he doesn't get too carried away, he doesn't get too ahead of himself, and he wants to prepare for, for future turns.
Right, one big flaw that you can have playing Darkrai is the deck promotes being extremely aggressive. It's easy to discard a lot of cards, draw a lot at a time, but Jason definitely wants to play conservatively as possible here. He wants to keep the outs open. If for some reason his active Darkrai does fall, does he have the cards to charge another Darkrai Night Spear once more? We're not sure.
Yep, so we saw 2 prizes get taken from Jason. One of them is a Burbank City Gym, which truly doesn't matter very much.
And let's put up Darkrai EX right now because it really is going to be the card that's going to dictate the rest of this game. Those Night Spears are crucial. They deal, especially with Dark Claw, 110 damage to the active, 30 to the bench. That's perfect. Right now, Lugia's got that 30 on it on the bench. That can be a big deal in the long run.
Now, Simon does play the Juniper, just discarding his Pokemon catcher because there is no better target than the current one that he's got in front of him.
And one thing I've just noticed with Simon is he runs a completely blinged out deck. All full-out cards, all golden alternate arts. Good for him. I wish I could have that many cool cards in my deck.
There's a double colorless energy, 1 Colress machine away from being able to attack this turn.
Like I said, it's just the successful Colress that determines whether or not that can happen. And at this point, he just needs to retreat to a dead Pokemon and hope that they can do something. Yeah, Deoxys is dead weight here. He just needs to absorb an attack.
That is a shame. And now I'm interested in seeing if Jason's going to take this opportunity to start junk hunting and not securing a victory, but securing a big advantage, or just going aggressive and really dealing 90 damage to, say, Deoxys and another 30 to the Lugia.
Right, and looking at the way things are, yeah, Lugia might be able to take a knockout on Darkrai, but after that, Jason can still do anything he can to minimize the chance of grabbing that very last prize card.
Yep. Ultra Ball here, and he's just thinning his hand, thinning his deck, I'm assuming. He does have a Keldeo left, so.
One interesting thing that does change the math again, like I said, 10 damage can be all the difference. Lugia EX, unlike a lot of other EX Pokemon, has 180 HP. And if you look at the math, it is just outside of Darkrai's range. With Dark Claw, he deals 110. He can deal 30 more with Burbank City Gym and Hypnotoxic Laser, but all that together, it would leave Lugia with 170 damage on it. So he cannot knock out this Lugia on this turn.
Now notice how he Pokemon captured, he being Jason, Pokemon captured the Lugia and decided to be aggressive against it. So what he's going to do is he's going to deal 90 damage, or 110 damage to it, and leave it something like 40 damage away, I believe, or something like that, away from being knocked out, which means that even if he does get a knockout on the current active Darkrai, the secondary Darkrai is going to come back and just knock it right back out.
Right, and so it, again, is going to be all down to whether or not Simon can scrape together the tools necessary for him to knock out this Sableye on the bench if he's able to attach and take 3 prizes against Darkrai on his turn.
Yeah, this is a very good, very aggressive play, and especially if he retreats onto the new Darkrai, and it kind of forces him to even have a Pokemon catcher to really get another knockout.
Right, I did not realize this. You know, you can see Darkrai in the top right. He has the Dark Cloak ability, free switch out.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what does matter, though, is the Lugia is going to have to get another energy attached onto it, which means one more turn of actually, like, pulling all your resources onto this Lugia, which is going to get knocked out immediately after taking its prizes, which is just going to leave Simon with no energy in play.
Right, and one thing definitely worth noting is we remember he had to discard that Pokemon catcher. We see the golden catcher right atop his discard pile. He had to dump that with Professor Juniper, and so he might not have enough catchers left within his deck in order to pull off this strategy completely. He needs one catcher here to pull up that bench Darkrai and knock it out. He would need another catcher to pull up the Sableye on the bench and knock it out if he wants to take that last prize, assuming he can even take the 3 here. The question is, does he have 2 catchers left? I know he's played or discarded at least 2.
Yep, so a Colress does come down, draws him 9 cards, but he's already spent one of his resources, which is his energy attachment for the turn, onto the Lugia, which has only something like 60 HP left.
Right. At the very least, this Lugia needs to get a knockout on something.
Actually, 40 HP left. I just saw the die with two on it.
So both players shuffle. Or sorry, just Simon shuffles. This is Colress. And this is a mighty Colress at that. Drawing 9 cards. You would hope to find at least one Pokemon catcher there if it was left in your deck. Without it, this game just might be out of his reach.
Yes, he not only needs to knock out this Darkrai, but he needs to have some sort of a comeback attack after the Lugia gets knocked out. So
I don't think I see a catcher in there either. We'll see. I'm used to the other kind of catcher. He runs the golden one, so I don't have that same visual cue that I normally do. That being said, Keldea coming up seems to be an indication that unless he's really just trying to pull some ridiculous tricks here, he probably doesn't have it.
He's searching his deck.
Ball. Can we see if there is a catcher left in there at all?
I think I see one catcher left.
One catcher's not going to cut it. Now, perhaps there is another catcher in his prizes that he could have taken with 3, but I mean, once you've played your supporter, you can't really draw much more. He's once again going to have to throw up one of these Deoxys as a buffer. That is not what he wants to do here.
And he does have Dowsing Machine in his deck as well. I'm not sure if he's already used it or not, but he does definitely have that as well.
Oh, he actually has Computer Search.
Oh, my apologies. No, he's a Computer Search player.
Right. Once his Pokemon catcher hits the discard pile, it is done. It will not come back in any form.
Yep. So he's got access to potentially one, potentially 2 Pokemon catchers. They're just not in his hand.
Right, and Jason, on the other hand, now seems like he will eventually be in a situation where a Pokemon catcher could determine whether or not he wins the game immediately. Now, he can deal a Night Spear here, 30 to the benched Lugia. He won't knock out Lugia, but then Lugia becomes within bench Night Spear damage. So
exactly.
If he catchers the Deoxys a second turn, knocks it out active, and knocks out the Lugia on the bench, he will actually take 1 extra prize, 7 prizes once again, but it'll still secure him this game.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities for Jason here. Jason has so many options while Simon really doesn't have very many. So Simon, he's not out of the game, but he's just short on options, and it's going to take some stumbling from Jason to really get Simon right back in here. Right, and you can definitely see a look of frustration in Simon's face. He's fought so far to come here. He did a Colress for 9 cards. That is quite a lot to draw in this game, and he just couldn't hit the 1 Pokemon catcher left in his deck. I don't know if there is one in his prize cards or not, but you definitely want to take 3 prizes when you can, especially when you're down and slowly falling into a chance of losing. Yeah, I believe he just pointed at Max Potion, wondering if he's supposed to maybe use it on Keldeo or something like that. I'm not really sure, but he definitely pointed at it. Well, Max Potion actually is something I hadn't considered. If he plays Max Potion, say, on the Deoxys, that could give him a 1-turn buffer. There is a Juniper that he just top-decked. The question is, how many cards are left in his deck? Not many, that's for sure. You don't want to deck yourself out here. There's the Max Potion on the Deoxys, something I did not consider when I was thinking about Jason setting up a potential win off catcher in the future. So that buys him at least 1 turn. That said, he needs to attack with Lugia this turn.
Otherwise, there's just so many wasted energy. Oh, and I do see a Skyla in his hand, so he could just grab the Pokemon catcher right off that, and I believe that's what we're going to see. Let's throw Skyla up real quick.
Skyla for the catcher. Catcher onto the Darkrai. The Darkrai is absolutely going to get knocked out this turn. That's what Jason
just moved them.
Yeah, he moves the damage counter.
They both have Dark Claw. They're both the same Darkrai. But here, Skyla allows you to search for any item card. It is very good in the late game. Sometimes in the early game, not so much because it doesn't draw cards. That said, Simon is here. Boom, with Lugia. He takes 3 prize cards off a single attack. And you look in his prizes. There was a prize catcher.
The prize catcher actually means quite a bit because that means that if Jason does not end here, he will be able to attack with the Thundurus EX and potentially knock out a Sableye if he's got the rest of the tools that he needs.
Right, and there's really nothing Jason can do to knock out this game right here on this turn. He's definitely going to knock out the Lugia, preferably with a catcher so that he can spread more damage around. But Simon, if he has, for say, a Hypnotoxic Laser in his deck, he could just knock out Sableye off the bench with his Thundurus EX.
Yes, this was really, really important because now Jason really is forced to get rid of Simon's hand.
That is very interesting, and I can only imagine what's going through Simon's head.
No, he plays a Juniper.
Oh, here we go. Here's 7 cards.
Goes the end.
Oh.
The Pokemon catcher, that is actually going to be enough if he has the Hypnotoxic Laser.
Oh, he does!
The Hypnotoxic Laser Pokemon catcher, that's going to be enough to knock out both
That's all Jason needed. Drew through his entire deck. I didn't even realize that was going to happen.
That is 4 prizes taking in 1 turn.
Wow, I didn't realize.
And Jason pulls it off out of nowhere. Completely fooled all of us. Fooled me and James.
Oh, no, I am completely awestruck.
Congratulations.
I did the math and thought, oh, he played that max potion, removing all the damage from the Deoxys. There's no way Jason could take 4 prizes here. That Keldeo had 4 damage counters on it. And so Jason Klaczynski, once again, drawing through several cards, hits everything he needs. He drew through his entire deck, he used his entire arsenal of tools, and that's all he needed to complete and become the 3-time Masters Trading Card Game World Champion.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we will be doing a winner's interview very soon, and I believe we're going to be throwing it to Nick and Porter right now.
Sounds good. See you guys soon.